Allen Lund Company has new offices in Ogden, Utah and Indianapolis, Indiana. Check allenlund.com to reach them.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
This is one of the most active hurricane seasons in many years, and there are some things truckers need to know as they gear up to help. I'll talk with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. If someone tries to force you into violating the federal safety regulations, you have a place to let the authorities know it's happening. I'll discuss that and filing beneficial ownership information with Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA. And finally, Marty Ellis is offering up a reminder about an important educational opportunity for people who want to become owner-operators. I'll talk with the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. We continue monitoring the aftermath of Hurricane Milton on Florida's Gulf Coast region. The impact of Hurricane Helene and now Milton is still coming into focus, but it's safe to say that two devastating hurricanes in as many weeks is having a ripple effect throughout the supply chain. We're already seeing some of that on fuel availability and fuel prices. In the days before Hurricane Milton made landfall on Florida's west coast, reports began to surface of potential fuel shortages. ProMiles, which monitors the fuel market daily, confirmed these shortages with Landline via email and explained just how serious the current situation is across the southeastern United States. Tony Stronchek, founder and co-president of ProMiles, said many locations have run out of fuel and many have contaminated fuel due to floodwaters entering tanks. Stronchek said the demand for fuel is higher than normal, too. ProMiles estimates that nearly 1,500 Florida fueling locations had run out of fuel as of Wednesday, October 9th. The effect on fuel prices remains to be seen, but ProMiles reports a national average for diesel jumping nearly 2 cents Thursday morning to $3.53 a gallon. In the Gulf Coast region, prices spiked nearly 6 cents to $3.20 a gallon. And new details tonight about the effect Hurricane Helene has had on the spot market. TruckStop says relief and recovery efforts fueled the largest increase in spot rates this year. Total broker posted spot rates in the TruckStop system rose to their highest level since early August last week. Average rates were up for all three equipment types. In fact, all three saw their sharpest increase in a comparable week since at least 2008. Total load activity rose 7.6% after increasing about 5% during the previous week. And load postings were about 8% higher than the same week last year, the first positive comparison since late July, but still about 24% below the 5-year average. Brent Hutto of TruckStop says there's opportunity out there now if you know where to look for it.
But the thing I would like to point out to owner operators is where there's chaos in areas or greater need in areas, there's always increased rates. So when you're looking for freight, the thing to do is to look for areas where there's always greater need at different times of the year. And to know that, it helps you in your business and helps you find better freight that pays better across the board, not just during FEMA times, because that's not considered economic opportunity from a standpoint like what it normally does. But yeah, so that's what you want to look at. The pressure in the marketplace went up about 12 points. In other words, there's just more freight available right now.
The week-over-week increase in volume was strongest in the Southeast, supporting the notion that the aftermath of Hurricane Helene was a driving force within the market. More details on the aftermath of Hurricane Milton and its effects on the market next week right here on Landline Now. Meanwhile, truck drivers and motorists fueling in Georgia will continue to get some relief from state fuel tax collection. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp announced this week that he's extending the suspension of the state's fuel taxes through October 16th. It applies to the entire state, giving travelers relief from paying the state's 32.3-cent gas tax or the 36.2-cent diesel tax. But for commercial drivers, International Fuel Tax Agreement or IFTA rules still apply. All miles traveled in Georgia for however long the fuel tax suspension lasts should be reported as non-IFTA miles. Remember, though, if you buy that tax-free fuel in Georgia and run in states that have not waived IFTA, you will be on the hook for those miles on your quarterly filings. Moving on now, a couple thousand Volvo trucks fall under a new recall. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says there's an electrical problem in affected 2022 through 2024 VN models. The defect can result in unintended acceleration, increasing the risk of a crash. Dealers will do a software update to fix the problem free of charge. Owner notification letters are set to be mailed out by the end of November. Truck equipment and parts manufacturers have now joined the fight against California's Advanced Clean Fleets rule. The Specialty Equipment Market Association and the National Truck Equipment Association jointly filed a federal lawsuit against the California Air Resources Board. The associations argue that CARB's emission rule, which requires all new medium and heavy-duty vehicles sold in the state to be zero tailpipe emission trucks by the year 2036, violates federal and state law. They also say the rule will decimate many of the companies they represent due to the operating costs that are necessary to comply. Many of the products they sell will be useless in California, the associations claim, eliminating the nation's largest single-state economy and the world's fifth largest economy from the market. This is at least the fourth federal lawsuit attempting to undo Advanced Clean Fleets. California enacted the Clean Fleets rule earlier this year, but the state has yet to enforce it. That's because they need EPA approval first, approval that is still pending. A California truck driver could soon be getting back more than $200,000 that was seized from him in Mississippi. WLBT News reports that the Mississippi Court of Appeals has reversed a lower court's decision that set the stage for a $225,000 asset forfeiture. The money belongs to Ray Young Chung. Chung was pulled over in Brandon, Mississippi in a tractor trailer more than 4 years ago. During a search, the money was found, but no weapons, drugs, or anything illegal. The $225,000 was seized because authorities suspected it was drug money. The appeals court in its recent ruling said the state failed to prove that money was intended for illegal purposes. The court ordered that the money be returned to Chung. The Ohio State Highway Patrol has released results of a nearly month-long commercial vehicle blitz. It took place in August and September, during which time troopers were active on Interstate 70, 71, 75, and 80, looking for violations. The Ohio State Highway Patrol says more than 2,000 inspections were carried out and more than 1,100 citations handed out. And finally, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association continued its support for veterans in South Dakota this week. Louis Pugh, Executive Vice President of the association, and other representatives traveled up to Sioux Falls from Kansas City on Wednesday to commemorate the opening of another Veterans Community Project site, and they came bearing gifts, 125 backpacks filled with hygiene kits and a check for $10,000. The money will go a long way to helping veterans who have fallen on hard times, says John Holter, the Executive Director of the Sioux Falls VCP location.
We don't have a federal funding stream. All the money that we need to run this village, to pay the light bill and salaries and all that, comes from donations like yours. So that $10,000 is huge to help us move forward and continue our mission of helping homeless veterans.
The backpack's also a big help, according to Craig Sanchez, who is a residential case manager for the VCP site in Sioux Falls.
Being a veteran myself, and you know, I have been through the whole the gamut of everything with the VA and stuff like that, and had my own struggles as well. And having a backpack, from what I've been told, the weight on the shoulders actually helps ease the mind. And when you have a homeless veteran and everything they have is on them, and especially if you have a prior service member who always carried a backpack, it gives them that sense of comfort. And it gives them that, okay, I got my stuff, I have everything I need, I just need to get to here, and then that takes the mind there. And it's really, even for myself, whenever I just want to clear my mind, I put on a bag and I get walking.
Representatives from the offices of U.S. Senator John Thune and Congressman Dusty Johnson were also on hand for the check presentation. Over the past 17 years, OOIDA has raised more than $800,000 and sent more than 3,200 care packages to support active troops overseas and veterans back home through its Truckers for Troops program. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Next, I'll discuss what truckers need to know in the wake of recent hurricanes with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department explain what to do if someone tries to force you into violating the regulations, and I'll cover an upcoming educational opportunity for people who want to become owner-operators with Marty Ellis of the Spirit of the American Trucker. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At Truck Stop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Unless you've been living in a cave, you're well aware by this point that we are in one of the most active hurricane seasons in many years. And there are some things truckers need to be aware of as they gear up to help in recovery efforts. Welcome back to Landline Now. This is Regulatory Roundup, and I'm Mark Rettig. I'm joined as always by OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Jay, how are you doing?
Doing all right, Mark. As you mentioned, active hurricane season, especially in this past couple weeks in the wake of Hurricane Helene and now Milton going through Florida.
Well, let's start with the first of these major hurricanes to hit recently, which is Helene. It was an astoundingly damaging storm, even far inland from the coast, and federal and state officials are taking actions to help. First, there is a federal emergency declaration. What states does this declaration cover, and what sort of help does it offer in those states?
Yeah, so this was issued by FMCSA last Friday, October 4th, covering Alabama, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. Declaration, obviously in response to Helene and its efforts on people, property, including immediate threats to life and public safety from heavy rains, winds, storm surge, high surf, and flooding. And the FMCSA emergency declaration this time is going to provide federal relief for federal motor carrier safety regulations, parts 390 through 399. So you're going to have hours of service in there, as well as some other inspection, registration, vehicle and equipment exemptions there. The key thing here is that FMCSA's emergency declaration applies to commercial vehicle operators providing direct assistance, supporting emergency relief efforts involving transportation and other relief services, to the immediate restoration of essential supplies or services in those states. The origin of the trip does not matter, so long as the direct assistance doesn't include transportation related to long-term rehabilitation of damaged infrastructure after the initial threat to life and property has passed. Another clarification here is that direct assistance technically does terminate when the driver or vehicles used in interstate commerce to transport the cargo or emergency services that are not in support of Helene. It terminates at the end of the delivery, but a driver may return empty to the motor carrier's terminal or the driver's normal work reporting location, still continuing the use of the emergency waiver. So even if they're returning empty and the trip is done, they still do not need to be in compliance with parts 390, 399. So I think this is, obviously a necessary emergency declaration from FMCSA to try and assist in the relief efforts. The current emergency declaration is going to be in place. It sounds like through October 27th. If conditions change before then, FMCSA can end that prior to October 27th, but kind of given the damage that we've been seeing, I would expect that it's going to go at least through October 27th and possibly longer.
I would say it's going to be a long time, for example, before people down there have potable water.
That's right.
It's just going to be a mess for quite some time. And I was impressed here that in stating that this is for direct assistance, they seem to have drawn a very clear line between that and the long-term recovery efforts. And I think that's very helpful for truckers, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Understanding what types of loads apply. But I think this emergency declaration is pretty broad in that it covers 390 through 399. Recently, FMCSA sort of updated their emergency declaration protocols to only apply specifically to hours of service regulations. They've kind of done a little broader exemption considering the damage and the recovery efforts that are going to be ongoing, as you mentioned, for what looks like quite a while. The FMCSA emergency declaration, follows on the heels of state declarations, presidential emergency declarations in a few of those states that have been impacted by the hurricanes. So I think all around we are seeing a robust emergency response, and truckers, of course, are playing an essential role in delivering goods, supplies into these, really damaged areas that have been hit hard.
In addition to all this, the federal government has set up a hotline to help those responding to the hurricane disaster. And I'm curious if you could kind of give us an idea, Jay, of what kind of information or help the folks on that phone line will provide to truckers.
Yeah, so this is known as the Routing Assistance Hotline that the Department of Transportation has set up. The hotline number is 833-99-ROADS. Numerically, that's 833-997-6237. This supports the movement of federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial response personnel, equipment, and goods by providing recommended safe routes using a variety of data sources. So if you're delivering emergency goods or any other loads to these areas, you can contact this hotline to hopefully get the most up-to-date information on different road closures, which roads are moving a little faster, a little safer. So another good resource that DOT has provided during this emergency relief time period.
And again, folks, the hotline is 833-99-ROADS. That's ROADS. And we will have that phone number and its numerical equivalent on our website, landlinenow.com. Jay, you mentioned there's also these state emergency orders that are out. And rather than going too deep in the weeds, can we just basically spell out for folks, are these different in any significant ways in terms of who it applies to among truckers or what it offers them?
Yeah, the state emergency declarations are generally going to be only for intrastate relief and kind of the intrastate operations. The FMCSA regional declaration kind of is the interstate commerce. So if you're traveling between the states there, depending on the state, some of them will have different exemptions and waivers, can be size and weight and other aspects, depending on the state. But I think for the most part, all the states have kind of activated their emergency response systems. That, again, is going to help expedite getting in goods and services into whatever areas need them in the most safe and efficient way as possible.
Let's turn to Milton here, and obviously a very dangerous storm. By the time people are hearing this, that storm will likely have passed out of Florida and gone into the Atlantic. But obviously, we've got quite a mess in the wake of it. The president issued an emergency declaration in advance of Milton making landfall. Can you walk us through what that order does?
Right. So President Biden earlier this week approved a Florida emergency declaration, kind of, gearing up for the recovery efforts for Milton. It authorizes Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, to coordinate all disaster relief efforts, which have the purpose of alleviating hardship and suffering caused by the emergency on the local population. Just really gives federal, state, local authorities, first responders, and truckers the ability to operate and provide as much assistance as possible. Now, the difference here, and really given Helene and the emergency orders, the presidential emergency declaration kind of reiterates the relief and the waivers that have been in place. Anytime a presidential emergency declaration is issued, that automatically triggers waivers for parts 390 through $3.99 for the trucking industry. Those were already in effect. A minor technical difference is that given the date of this, it's going to be 30 days relief beginning on October 4th. So for Florida, that Part 390 through 390 waiver is now going to be automatically extended a few days. But kind of as we discussed earlier, I anticipate that once we get closer to that regional declaration deadline of October 27th, we're going to see perhaps and probably an extension of FMCSA regional relief, which is already covering the state of Florida there. So just another way to kind of open up all the funding and efforts that need to go down in Florida in the wake of this second hurricane, really hitting, going across the Florida Gulf Coast and moving out as we speak now. And hopefully, you never know in a hurricane season, but, hopefully we don't see any other major storms build up before some of these deadlines begin to kind of get close later on towards the end of the month.
Okay. Let's talk about another aspect of this that's directly affecting truckers. We have a lot of truckers out there who ask during events like this how they can haul FEMA loads. Of course, that's the Federal Emergency Management Agency that helps people out when these types of events occur. And some of them are noticing that these are not apparently posted on load boards. Can you kind of walk us through what the situation is there?
Yeah, so FEMA kind of uses their own process and their own contractors to deliver these FEMA emergency loads. And FEMA uses contractors registered in the federal government system for award management. And drivers won't see loads specific to FEMA on load boards unless that motor carrier company is contracted through the federal government. So as a motor carrier, there's sort of an application and registration process separate from DOT that you have to go through FEMA's program if you want to haul the FEMA loads during the emergency process. So all that is kind of undertaken separately from DOT. And, sometimes there are some FEMA loads that end up on other load boards, but it's very rare kind of considering the demand that FEMA gets during these emergency times. So FEMA has, referenced SAMS.gov, which allows businesses to register for free to do business with the federal government. And there's kind of an application process you go through. That application for the trucking industry is not going to be open until February and March of next year. So if you aren't currently registered to deliver FEMA loads, you're going to have to wait till that application period is open. But it does kind of seem like FEMA is certainly getting those loads out to go where they need to go. Looking at some of the data we saw earlier this week, more than 5,000 personnel from across the federal workforce are deployed, including more than 1,500 from FEMA. FEMA has shipped over 9.3 million meals, 11.2 million liters of water, 150 generators, and more than 260,000 tarps to the region. I can only imagine those numbers continue to grow considering the wake of Milton now later on this week. So that's critical in getting registered with FEMA. Certainly, these emergency situations can be unpredictable for drivers out there who are in the midst of delivering emergency supplies. Patience is critical. Being prepared to have the supplies that you need in case there's not going to be power to where you're going, there's not going to be telecommunications to where you're going to be critical as well.
Okay. And folks, if you do want to help out and you're not signed up to FEMA, you can contact the American Logistics Aid Network through their website, ALANaid.org. Again, that's ALAN aid.org. And they're organizing a lot of relief efforts as well. Jay, thank you very much for all the information, and hopefully we helped some folks out.
Yes, sir. And everyone be as safe as possible, and always great to see everyone kind of pitching in together to help everyone in these times of need.
Absolutely. I've been talking with Jay Grimes of OOIDA. Landline Now will be back in a moment.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Capital Reman, the leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, has partnered with OOIDA to offer exclusive member benefits. Visit CapitalReman.com today to support America's transportation industry and take advantage of your benefits.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibertech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at VibertechTVD.com.
Landline Now, welcome back. What do you do if someone is trying to get you to violate the regulations? There's a place where you can report that kind of activity. Here to explain how it works and sometimes how it doesn't are Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Thanks as always, Mark.
Now, this involves something, and we use the abbreviation NCCDB, but it stands for National Consumer Complaint Database. And one of the things that I think is hilarious is it's actually not a place for consumers to file complaints. So I'm wondering if you could walk us through what the National Consumer Complaint Database is. What is its purpose from truckers' perspective?
From a trucker's perspective, it is a place where truckers, company drivers, owner-operators can go to the FMCSA and post their complaint about a carrier, about coercion issues, about carriers that just, quite frankly, don't treat folks very well, about business conducts, about unfair business processes and such. From a carrier's point of view or a trucker's point of view, I mean, the NCCDB, and the name is very misleading. I give you that. I recall years ago we went to the feds and we tried to petition get a name change, and
they're the feds.
They're the feds, and their acronyms make sense to them, I suppose.
Yeah, they should really change that.
Yeah.
It's an issue, but we just need to let people know.
Yep, it is there, and it is a resource available. And, when folks call me up and they say, this carrier's not paying me, or the leasing regulations aren't being followed, or broker carrier issues, I do try to, while I listen to their complaint and try to help them go a direction. But this is one of the directions I point them to, is the NCCDB. I mean, this is where you could go and post a complaint. Now, that said, you could put all kinds of complaints in there if it's fairly recent, and it is not it's not like dialing 911. If you have an emergency, 911.
Right.
But if it's an unfair business practices or a coercion issue, anything like that, that's where you would go and put the complaint. And you will, once you file a complaint, you will get a report number that's supposed to be followed up on. That's kind of the issue there, is what actually happens. It goes back to the state that would be responsible for that, and it's up to the state to take action. One thing that we do hear from the feds, anytime that we go to them with a problem, is they say, well, we do or don't have complaints on the NCCDB. Now, whether they acted on them or not, they do have that information. And so I tell people, regardless of if they act on it or not, go make your complaint so they have that information that a complaint was filed.
And something that kind of goes with that, Tom, we for a long time urged people to call OOIDA when you file that and get that report number, give it to the folks here at OOIDA, because that then gives us the ability to say, yeah, you did, and here's the report number. Yes, you did get complaints about this.
And that is a big thing. And we still urge them to give us a call and let us know what they filed, what the issue was, and what the follow-up was. Was there follow-up? Did the feds get back a hold of them? When the site first came out all those years ago for the carriers or for the truckers, we heard there was some follow-up. They did reach back. Now, we don't hear near as much of that anymore, and that's something that we really need to continue to push. There are so many carriers, brokers, entities in the industry that take advantage of the small operator or of the driver. And, if you don't speak up, nobody knows about it. And truckers tend to be, solo folks that operate by themselves, and they just take it on the chin and keep on going. You got to speak up about it. If you don't verbalize it, if you don't put it in writing, get it to the NCC, call the compliance department. Who's going to know about it? Just you? And what good does that do?
Yeah. Well, and so much of the issue that I find is that I'll send this out like wildfire, and very few people actually follow up and actually do it. Do it, right? At the end of the day, file it. Get it done. It's more than just what Tom said even. You can do it against medical examiners. You can do it for non-payment or fraud. This is how you report this stuff. Maybe we always say that FMCSA, maybe they haven't put the resources or the manpower, and I would tend to agree with that sentiment behind this. But the only way to find out is to actually get these numbers in and then take it to them and see what can be done.
Well, and hopefully if a lot of people, for example, file complaints on a particular carrier or a particular broker or whatever, that maybe the FMCSA perks up and thinks, maybe we have a problem there.
And if you look back at a few of the issues that the feds have responded to, be it with brokers and stuff, they did get that complaint through the NCCDB. That is what brought their attention to that. Now, I would like to see them respond to a lot more issues, but it does go through there. They do get those, and it does matter if you file those. And keep in mind, driver coercion, that's a big issue. If your carrier is trying to coerce you to violate the hours of service or violate some other safety regulation, and if they terminate you over that, again, the NCCDB, the whistleblower, they have a place for that on there.
Absolutely. And folks, that website, by the way, is nccdb.fmcsa.dot.gov. And we will put a direct link on our website, landlinenow.com, because that's really long. So it's not going to be easy to remember. And it's pretty simple. You scroll down to the box that says, I'm a driver. You click on the box at the bottom that says, file a complaint. It gives you options, and you can just go from there. You can also call 1-888-DOT-SAFT to file that complaint. We've said in the past, and we said earlier here, that we want people to call OOIDA. Walk us through a little bit. If you get a call from someone, they give you a report number and say, I filed this on the National Consumer Complaint Database, what do you do with that information?
Well, number one, we document it so that we'll have it for future. But also, depending on what the complaint is, we want to follow up with them and see how this does play out. Many times, a lot of times drivers call OOIDA not knowing exactly what it is or how we can help them. And I got to say, many times, I've spoke to drivers, and it's that we tell them what the rules are, what they can expect. Information is key. Let them know what's coming their way.
Education.
Absolutely. Let them know what's coming their way. Because, if a driver at least has a good idea what his options are, you hear all these truck stop lawyers out there. They'll tell you all kinds of stuff. Call us up. Let us confirm or deny that and set you on a real course that can actually get results.
Absolutely. Something else, and it's a little off topic for us here, but in addition to the National Consumer Complaint Database, or NCCDB, something else I've seen lately is a lot of people going to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, and filing whistleblower complaints if they've been retaliated against for being a whistleblower, and that seems to be fairly effective in a lot of cases.
That sometimes gets better response than the NCCDB. While on the NCCDB, there is a place for that where you can list that if you've been retaliated against, but the EEOC does seem to have some pretty good kick in them too. And if you come up against a situation, a retaliatory situation or something where it's kicking back at you, again, don't keep that to yourself. Get that information out there, file the proper documentation, and nothing's going to change if people stay silent.
Let's go on. We just have a little bit of time left here, but we've got another topic that a lot of people have been calling about, and that is BOI, or beneficial ownership information. People asking if they have to register for this, when do they have to do it, what the heck is this thing, isn't there a court decision against it? You do have to file it. That is something that is definitely a thing. What do we mean, guys, by beneficial ownership information? What information are we filing there?
So it's on the FinCEN website, Federal Crimes Network website. It's not even trucking related, it's business related, right? And so if you have a corporation or an LLC, it applies to you. There are certain terms and conditions where there's an exemption from it, but for most truck drivers, you won't fall under those exemptions, so file it. And you must file it by the end of the year. And they say that for every day that passes, it's supposed to be some $500 some odd dollars. How much of that is true, I'm not sure. But you need to go ahead and file it. It takes 15 or 20 minutes. I've walked through with it a couple times with some people and try to do it myself. It's not exactly rocket science, but you need to dictate who is in charge of your business. You need to prove your identity.
Claim your ownership of the business.
Exactly.
There are so many businesses that are filed, because all that stuff's done online. You go to your Secretary of State and file for your incorporation or your LLC.
Have a registered agent.
And a registered agent, and it doesn't tie the business to you. Well, with all the scams that are going on out there in the trucking industry and across many industries, it's a way to narrow some of that down, because when the scammers, they're not going to be honest with it, and the feds will be able to, get in there into the database and see who is not honest and who is, what information checks out, and this is a way to cut down on the scams, and especially in the trucking industry, as just about every owner operator, leased carrier, whatever knows that there's a lot out there aimed at you, and so this is one way that the feds have come up with to try to cut down on that, to get you to claim your business. Now, there was a lawsuit out there, and I forget the name of the group that got it together and got exempt from it, at least temporarily. As Aaron said, truckers aren't exempt. They, if you have an incorporation or an LLC, you need to get on there. You need to file this. It's not rocket science. It's just your basic company information, your information, and it ties it together and puts the responsibility back on the owner of the company and the company, rather than, there's so much ID theft and fraud. It's hoping to cut some of that out.
Well, and keep in mind, do this yourself. Don't farm this out and pay another service to do it. This is all the information that you should know about yourself. You have all of the answers to the test already. Why would you pay somebody $100 to do that for you?
Yeah.
Like many things where people are offering to do that, it's usually pretty easy to do it yourself. Even though it's a government form, some of these really are pretty easy.
Yeah, it's not difficult at all. Like Aaron said, we've walked people through it. There is a walkthrough there's a YouTube walkthrough. You can get on, different places. You can find walkthroughs. You can get information for it. And it's just pretty self-explanatory. It's information that you already have about yourself and your business. Get on there, do it, get it done. Don't let it become an issue.
And folks, that website, by the way, is fincen.gov/BOI. That's FINCEN.gov/BOI. That's where you go. It'll have some information about it. That's where you go to fill out that form and get this filed. And you mentioned that lawsuit earlier. That was the National Small Business Association. Well, that court decision says only their members do not have to file this. So,
and there's still argument about that. So I don't think it's finished.
Okay. Well, guys, we're out of time, but thank you very much for the information on both these topics.
Great, Mark. Thanks for having us.
Thanks as always, Mark.
I've been talking with Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
If you're running ultra-low sulfur diesel in your vehicle, make sure you are prepared and protected all winter long with Howes Diesel Treat, the #1 anti-gel product in North America from the 100-plus year trusted brand Howes Products.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide. Owner-operators need roadside speed. Truckdown.com.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now. Welcome back. Every week, we check in with Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. Marty is coming off a break and is now headed to yet another truck show. But in the meanwhile, he's offering up a reminder about an important educational opportunity for people who want to become owner-operators and giving truckers some reminders about preparing as we continue through what's been an active hurricane season.
Carolina west to Denver, up to Bangor, west to Austin, coast to coast, sea to sea, sail on, sail on.
Well, Marty, how are you doing?
I am lovely, Mark, and you?
I'm doing great, and we're glad to have you here at the mothership, as we say.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Well, great. And you've got a lot of stuff ahead of you here. Right now, you're kind of on a break, but this weekend, you're going to what sounds like a very interesting event.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be traveling down to Gonzales, Texas for the Yellow Rose chapter of the ATHS, their truck show. And it's going to be at the J.B. Wells Park Pavilion. They'll have a toy truck show also and a silent auction to help raise money for their chapter. And it should be a good time. I've never been down there, so it is only a one-day event. And for some people, that's really a lot more doable than the big 2, 3, 4-day events.
That can get pretty involved, putting one of those on.
Absolutely. Putting it involved, and then just attending, if you plan on attending it, it's, you're basically investing that same week off instead of a couple days. So yeah, it makes it a little quicker and easier.
Well, you'll have to tell us what kind of cool old trucks you see down there.
Absolutely. I see that Louis got himself a cool old truck now. So
really?
Yeah. I know he had been talking about it for a while. So yeah, it's very nice looking truck. So if you get a chance to see that, I think that'd be awesome.
I'm going to have to talk to him about that. That's pretty interesting. He's holding out on us.
Oh, man. See, the only reason I knew, I saw it on social media, so I had to send him a message saying, hey, a new truck? Or was he just looking? And so he was able to find one that he liked.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about some of the stuff that's kind of happening in the trucking world. And one of them that I think is something very important, but also can be very useful to a lot of people, Truck to Success, which is OOIDA's seminar on becoming an owner-operator, being more successful. That is coming up in very short order here.
It really is. Yeah, it's amazing. I was looking at the schedule, and it's like, I'm really not going to be gone away from Grain Valley very long before I come back up. And I'm actually going to be attending the Truck to Success class. So I can have a little bit better idea what's actually happening during that class. I mean, I promote it when I'm out on the road, but it's going to be really good to have some hands-on real world, watching it happen. And then, of course, I hear that Jimmy Mack's going to come up to visit during that time. So that'd be very cool for the folks that are coming to the class to check out. But, yeah, it really is. I've talked to a lot of people that want to move from company driver to owner-operator, and it really will help them a lot of times either solidify their decision or maybe change their mind. Maybe it's a little more than what they thought that they'd be wanting to get into. And also, it's designed to help the guys and gals that come to that class to avoid the pitfalls that a lot of people have done in the past. And some of the time that right there is in itself is worth its weight in gold, just to avoid the things you can avoid. Because everybody knows life isn't perfect. There's a lot of ins and outs with it. And so, but some of the time it is better to learn from people that have walked before you. It doesn't mean that you can't do your own twist, your own turn on that. It just means that, hey, let's look at some of the basics that you can avoid, and then we'll help you tweak things from there.
One of the things that I've always found interesting about that is there's a lot of people that attend that, and when they get to the end of it, they're like, I don't think I'm ready for this. And we really look at that as a success as well.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that way, but it really is, because you would rather know ahead of time without the big investments put into place than afterwards. So it really truly is a success that way. And I'm guessing if they keep on looking at it, they will set themselves up even better, and then they'll be so much more prepared than they would have been if they would have just jumped.
Okay. And folks, by the way, that is it's a 3-day course that starts on October 22nd. The deadline to attend in person is passed, but you can still attend by Zoom. You just have to register before October 21st. So definitely something you want to look into, and you can find more information at OOIDA.com. Let's talk hurricanes. And, we are kind of talking after one, before another, right. And by the time folks are hearing that storm will have passed. Sure. But it's really a problem for a lot of folks in the industry because they have to haul in and out of these places, and sometimes the timing just really puts them right, in the path of these storms.
Right, yeah, because so many of the places, they can't just stop things and say, well, it might happen, it might hit, hard enough not to be working. So you don't know this ahead of time. So a lot of guys are going into these, like right now it'd be basically the Florida, at least the way that everything looks right now, it looks like Florida is going to be where that's going to hit. And so you can't always plan on that, but you can go in there prepared. You can make sure you get fuel way in advance as best you can. And also keep everybody up to date. Talk to your shippers and receivers and see if there's phone numbers you can get, so in case something would happen and you couldn't get there, or maybe, talk to them and say, hey, could you, if you guys are going to be closing up, please give me a call, or keep those lines of communication over. And of course, if you are working with a broker, okay, you need to also keep in very good contact with the broker, because bad things happen when you don't. And, anything happens with your load, I encourage people, especially a broker load nowadays with their wanting to be so fine happy, to let them know, if they had the wrong address and you're going to be late, even if you can't get somebody on the phone at whatever time it is, send an email so you have some sort of documentation letting them know, hey, this happened, this is what we're doing. Maybe you're going to be a little late. Well, if you document it ahead of time, it will protect you from a lot of the problems that can appear later on, because a lot of it doesn't appear the day that it happens. It doesn't even appear the time that you're supposed to be getting paid. It can appear later on, and then they want to keep money from a load that had nothing to do with that one.
Yeah. It just adds whole layers of complication to this whole thing. I think one thing we need to say definitely to folks is, if you are either picking up or dropping off in the path of one of these storms, it's time to maybe reconsider, because it's not worth it. It is simply not worth it to get in the path. And we are not done with hurricane season. No. It goes on for a while after this.
Yep.
And this year's kind of weird with hurricanes. So just don't play with these things. It's not worth it.
Right. And prepare. Get water. Get food in your truck. You don't know. You could be stranded just on a highway. So
there you go. Well, Marty, we're running out of time here. And we know that you've got a couple of things coming up after the truck show. But in the meanwhile, do you have any final words for folks before you ride off into the sunset?
Hey guys, just be kind to one another and give that guy next to you a break.
Brothers of the highway, children of the wind.
Once again, that was Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker. You can find Marty's next stop on our show and every day at our website, landlinenow.com. That includes truck stops, truck shows, and other special events across the country. Again, you can find that at landlinenow.com, and you can also find the Spirit's complete schedule at OOIDA.com. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad.
A son.
A husband.
Wife.
I'm a writer.
Photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars. Fishing.
My kids.
Chrome.
And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.